It is Sunday, the 26th day of September, 2010. We're going to be live here for the next 2 hours as we are every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, live until 2 p.m. Central. Okay, I want to open the phones up for a question I have for listeners. And I'm going to do that after this first short segment in the second long segment that is coming up. And it'll be first-time calls again today because so many people are emailing me and texting me and sending me letters saying, thank you that lately you've been spending a few days a week for first-time callers because we've been trying for years to get through on air. We will do that again today. Coming up, but the phones aren't open yet because I want to throw out the specific questions for you. I'd like you to answer those questions because I want to get your views on this and help stir my own personal mental juices, as they say, coming up in the next segment. Some of the news we have here, I saw this a couple days ago, but I didn't get to it. I do want to cover it at least later in the next hour. This is out of The Nation magazine, and it really mirrors the intel we've gotten about Blackwater and others. That's why Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer's book, one of the reasons right now you notice the Pentagon is censoring it and not allowing it to come out right now because he's critical of these mercenary groups. But U.S. businessman Blackwater paid me to buy steroids and weapons on black market for its soldiers. Reports on Baghdad parties with piles of cocaine, hashish, running around naked, shooting machine guns into people's houses for fun, just total bloodthirsty insanity. And we've seen all these different mercenary videos of other groups just shooting families in their minivans in Iraq for fun, and then our media tries to cover that up and throwing puppies off cliffs and the rest of it with a bunch of satanic, music blaring in the background. So we're going to be discussing some of that coming up today. Obviously, I want to get into the economy and look at where globalism has taken us, what it's done to our society. The headline in the Wall Street Journal is credit unions bailed out. But when you actually read what happened, the feds are seizing a bunch of credit unions and feeding it into the big mega six banks. That's what this new Federal Reserve expansion of power earlier this year was really all about. Another one, regulators shut down banks in Florida, Washington State. Czech President tells the UN to stay out of economics. We're going to be going over that. We're also going to get into small business banks may spurn or refuse Obama's $30 billion program. That's because when you take any money from them, they get control of your institution. Bank of America debt collectors called borrowers effing N-words and punk to get them to pick up the telephone in debt collection. Just incredible coming out from ABC News. Bernanke says economy recovering more slowly than policymakers would like. Well, last Monday, the Fed said that we aren't in a recession since 15 months ago, that everything's fine. So I don't get the doublespeak from these guys. Also, Bloomberg, Obama stimulus made economic crisis worse. Black Swan author says, I want to go over this report from the economic collapse, 19 facts about the deindustrialization of America that will blow your mind. And also, Obamacare is even worse than critics thought. And we're going to be going over that. Obama health care imposes 3.8% tax on all income from home sales and home rental income. Just one of the little nightmares rolled into one there. That's all coming up in the economics stack. Also, the rats are jumping ship, getting off the sinking, burning ship. Rahm Emanuel leading exodus of Obama aides from the White House. That's part of my question I've got for you. Coming up, I also want to get to the latest. We've now gotten a full list released by the Department of Homeland Security in Pennsylvania. In fact, I forgot to print that. Will you guys print Pennsylvania released full list of groups on terror list? It was in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and some others. I forgot to give it to you. Sorry. Israeli company running that spy grid. This, the treason and criminality only expands from there. More eugenicist population reduction news, big government documents coming out on that front, and Iran, and a lot more. Stay with us, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for the abbreviated Sunday broadcast, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. Again, we're back weekdays, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. blasting out on the AM and FM dial a growing list of wonderful affiliates simulcasting at Infowars.com for the free audio streams and the free podcast, as well as the free iPhone app. And then don't forget also for members, living video color, multicam shoot, multicast, prisonplanet.tv. Okay. We're going to get into the deteriorating economy and how it's been engineered by design in the words of the UN themselves. There's also more publicly released Rockefeller Foundation, UN, Club of Rome, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation documents where they admit conclusive global distribution of Rockefeller-funded anti-fertility vaccine coordinated by the World Health Organization. And there's been a new facet of this discovered. We actually reported on this 2 years ago when this document was actually released by the National Security Council and the Pentagon. But I got to be honest, it wasn't until Glenn Beck covered it this week that I went and reread it. And it talks about intelligence report envisions designing humans with unique abilities under global governance regime. And it says the global government will design humans to basically serve the system. And you're already under that process of the brainwashing process to make you do whatever you're told so you can then be drugged and manipulated, and then the government can decide who can have children. That's all in this strategic report up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Global Trends 2025, a Transformed World, National Intelligence Council, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, United States of America. So everything we've covered on this show in the last 15 years is now coming out into the open. And the only question is, does the public have the will and the courage to face this information? The food you eat, the GMO crops, on record designed to reduce fertility, give you cancer, on record. The vaccines designed to be used as basically binary weapons to reduce your IQ, dumb you down, filled with mercury, cancer, viruses, you name it, all on record. We're going to be discussing that coming up in the second hour. Also, later in the hour, we're going to get into something that, quite frankly, dwarfs in my 13 years, in my 15 years of exposing things. But I've been on air about 2 years. It was 1997. I've been on air about 2 years since then, since 95. And law enforcement around the country would send me intelligence reports that they'd been given by the ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, federal government, the FBI, the Justice Department. And it would state that the real terror threat is the American people, gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, returning veterans, the list goes on. And it never really got attention when I would report on it. A few newspapers would pick up on it when we would be given these documents. And then 5 years ago, we got documents from preachers around the country. Now it's over 50,000, secretly hired by FEMA to tell their flocks to submit to government, to turn their guns in if they're told to take inoculations if they're told, to let CPS take their children. That finally made national news. And I really think that it was just the American people weren't ready to admit this. They still trusted their government, and also, my radio show was not as big as it is now. My news websites were not as powerful as they are now. And it really, never broke through the national stage until last February, when we got the MIAC and Homeland Security reports. Remember, it became a big national story. For a couple of weeks, it was the biggest story in the country. And the left was defending it. Yes, returning veterans are bad and dangerous. Yes, gun owners are bad. Yes, Ron Paul is bad. Yes, Bob Barr supporters are bad. Yes, people that want to get us out of the UN are bad. In fact, I have an Economist magazine article this week basically saying the same thing. We'll go over later if we have time, but it's linked up on Infowars.com. Kurt Nimmo did a story about it. And So we finally broke through that psychological barrier where people were ready to face up to this information. Well, since then, more has come out. Since almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago or so, last February, more has come out. And it's in the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. It's in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It says lawsuit planned after protesters put on terror list. Pennsylvania Homeland Security employed Israeli government to suppress American political dissent. You can't make this type of stuff up. I mean, it's illegal to have the feds or the state wiretapping gun groups. In fact, Friday we had a state representative on, Army veteran, rated as one of the most conservative in his state. We had him on the show, and they're now getting the confirmed intel that their phones were tapped. This is a mainline state representative who was having pro-Second Amendment and anti-tax increase rallies, and the feds were watching them, the state was watching them, and the state paid $125,000 to an Israeli company to watch them. I mean, that's secret police. And so later I do want to get into this in more detail because I saw a report over the weekend. Justice Department report criticizes FBI spying on anti-war groups. And the Justice Department, just like they just, one of the deputy heads of the Justice Department's gone public saying they were ordered not to investigate the Black Panthers standing out front polling places saying, you know, kill whitey, kill white people, kill the white babies. You've seen the video on national news. Other videos of Black Panthers with nightsticks basically threatening people outside polling places, menacing people. And they were told, do not investigate that. Well, now there's this report. The Justice Department's Inspector General has issued a report critical of the FBI for its spying on anti-war activists, animal rights groups, and environmentalists. The report, entitled A Review of the FBI's Investigations of Certain Domestic Advocacy Groups, said the terror investigations were unreasonable and inconsistent with FBI policy. And I've seen similar reports going back over a decade, even when Bush was in office. I don't want an anti-war group having their rights violated. I'm against these illegal wars, unconstitutional wars, preemptive wars. I'm against these organizations having their rights violated, and they probably were. My issue is, what is the Justice Department doing putting out a report critical of the FBI investigating groups that at the bare minimum have a more violent history, especially animal rights groups and environmental groups, of sabotaging things, burning down ski resorts. I mean, you know the long laundry list, burning down car dealerships, breaking into facilities. But the government's saying leave them alone because those are groups that the federal government and big foundations are funding. It's like when illegal aliens get so upset in San Francisco by citizens at the public school wearing American flag T-shirts, the American flag-wearing teenagers are sent home, the illegal aliens win a big victory against free speech and the First Amendment. Or when illegal aliens riot, it's played down in the media. When they pull down American flags at fire stations, police stations, post offices, private businesses, and run Mexican flags up, that's okay. Don't investigate them. Don't list them as potential terrorists. I mean, if it's an outside group running around saying down with the U.S., up with Aslan, up with Mecha, that at least starts becoming seditious or revolutionary. And I'm not saying violate their rights to due process, but you've got clear evidence there of dangerous groups. Meanwhile, the Justice Department's saying leave all these people alone. Leave them all alone. Don't go to their meetings. Don't keep tabs on what they're doing. No. You need to watch gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, patriots, people that want to audit the Federal Reserve. And now we have the Pittsburgh newspapers, the Tribune and Post, reporting on the list of these groups that they're spying on: Tea Parties, state representatives, mainline gun groups. The bottom line is this: Homeland Security is for patriotic Americans. It's built for us, it's pointed at us, and this didn't start under Obama. Okay, this has always been the game.